What's up, everybody? This is Klint with the world's okayest mountain bike podcast, and I and my buddy here, Andy Hahn, who we were roommates for most of college, was sophomore year, junior year, and then a semester at least of senior year, first semester. Is that right? So 2.5 years, 2 years at least. Anyway, he's a runner. You know I mountain bike, so we signed up and did the Three-Legged Monster Race, which is a fundraiser race for the Ozark Trail Association, and we did the long course. And short version is we ended up coming in fourth. I don't know how many teams were doing the long course. There were 40 or so total teams. Last year they only had 20 something though, so our times we believe were basically good enough. We probably could have been right with the winners from last year, but the competition was stiff this year. So anyway, the event was not without a little drama. Not terrible, but I had to ride 30 miles, and basically the course was it's the same beginning as the BT Epic, except you stay on the Floyd Tower gravel road another 3 miles or so before getting on the Berryman Loop. So it was Floyd Tower Road to the Berryman Loop. You stay on that loop, go past Brazil Creek Campground, and you actually get back off on the other place that the loop intersects Floyd Tower Road, and then ride the road all the way back. So I came out of the gate what I didn't think was too hot, but man, it's a lot of climbing in that first 7 mile stretch. You think you're on top of a hill, you barely go down at all, and then you're going back up again. So I might have burned a few matches that came back to haunt me later there, but I got into the woods probably around 11th or 12th, and once the trail got rough and bumpy and remotely flat or downhill at all, and even on some of the climbs that were more rough, like spots where there was rooty and rocky, I just started picking people off left and right, at least on the mountain bike side. But my wife and kids met me at about mile 20 at the intersection of Berryman Road and Floyd Tower Road. That was great. I was feeling really good at that point. I mean, I was starting to get tired, but there were a couple guys around me that I'd kind of been swapping positions with the whole stinking race. And on Berryman Road, there's a really long, steep climb, and it's paved, and I went to stand up and get out of the saddle to put a little power down and stretch my legs, and both quads, as soon as I stood up, started twitching and locking. So my last 10 miles or so were really tough. I had to pedal super smooth. I couldn't stand up to I couldn't straighten my legs out to relax them, and a lot of arrow tucking. But I think I came across the line about 7th or 8th mountain bikers in the long course, and I was doing that on my 170 mil Specialized Enduro with a Fox Float X2 shock. Definitely the biggest bike in the event, without a doubt, 100%. Probably the heaviest, for sure the most travel. But it did good when it was rough at just carrying speed through all the bumps. So the parts of the trail that were like twisty and relatively flat, where you could really just maintain your momentum around corners, I had a big advantage. And then even on the gravel road, man, when it went downhill, I would catch people and pass them just by arrow tucking with my weight, and I had pretty fast rolling wheels. So if you are a cross-country racer and you don't think that the downhills matter, I promise you, I finished right behind people that were probably 5% faster than me up every hill, but they were 50% slower than me down every hill, and I finished right on them. So work on your downhill skills if you're a cross-country racer. You don't have to charge the downhills, but you can go a lot faster with just a little practice, and that time adds up for sure. So I'm going to turn it over to Andy, who's a runner. We usually don't have runners on this podcast, Andy. So, Andy, tell them a little about yourself and how your race went.
Yeah, so this is Andy. Like Klint said, we've known each other since college.
2006.
Yeah, for a while now. Anyway.
How many years? 2016 years?
It's been...
Oh my gosh.
It's been a long time, dude.
Half my life. Well, almost half. Not quite.
Yeah. But anyway, came in from Chicago. We're originally from St. Louis, moved to Chicago. But it's a really great event. Like Klint said, I tackled the running portion of it, and that was hard. Like, I'm like a wannabe marathoner that has a couple decent times under my belt, nothing like professional, but it was hard. I'd say that trail was every bit as hard as the marathons that I've run, and it was right under 13 miles. I think probably about 1,600 foot of gain. That doesn't sound...
It almost sounds like an equivalent, road biking to mountain biking versus flat road running to trail running.
Because, yeah, it might be.
Half the distance, but it feels just as hard.
Yeah, that definitely might be true. And I don't know, maybe for you mountain bikers, like 1,600 feet doesn't sound like a lot, but for a runner over the course of like 12 and a half, 13 miles, that's a lot of gain.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And
no,
so,
that's a lot.
That's
a legitimate amount on a bicycle for sure.
Yeah, and so I don't get a lot of vert like in my training, my marathon training, but basically like the climbs were really tough. I was managing them fine until about mile 8, but the climbs were tough. The downhills where I could open up my stride and kind of let like the street running training like come back into play. I was able to like catch people and they'd gap me on uphills, and that was all working pretty well. Like I was 3rd or 4th or something like that until about mile 8, and then we had like the last big climb that was just tough. Like it just kind of blew me up, and so I got passed by a couple people. I think I recovered to about 5th in the run. I was a little annoyed, like maybe I would have finished 4th because there was one person I was tracking pretty hard. But when I got to the end of the run, like it wasn't exactly clear where to go, and so I went out and back,
out of your
probably
way,
about
a couple hundred yards at least.
I mean, dude, I think
maybe more than that.
I think it was close to at least like a quarter mile, if not 3/10 of a mile out and back. But anyways, overall, like that's a really minor quibble. It was an awesome event for the running. Like I should do more trail running. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean the running went pretty well. For any of you who like are into running gear, the Saucony Endorphin Edge trail shoe and the Nathan Pinnacle 12 hydration pack, the 1.2 liter hydration pack. Yeah, so it was good, and then it worked out really well. Like Klint and I, after I took my detour, got to the canoe about the same time.
Yeah, I was literally hobbling almost to the canoe, and I saw you jog like by over closer to the creek. So that worked out.
He describes it as jogging when like it's the end of the run.
Well, you weren't sprinting. Well, to me, okay, don't be offended at that, because to me, like distance running and jogging are the same thing.
See,
in my mind.
Whatever. I'm not going to be offended by that. I wouldn't agree, but I'm not going to be offended.
Well, so when I got back to my truck, I was truly worried about being able to walk. And after I locked my bike in my truck and everything and started heading to the canoe, they parked us like 3/4 of a mile away, at least, from the canoes. And about halfway, like my legs started cramping. I didn't know if I was going to make it to the canoe without having to like sit on the ground for a while. So, I'm sure Ryan and Kyle and I will do a podcast, and I'll talk about the bike side more in depth. But there's one thing we totally got wrong about this race, and that is how competitive and how hard people were pushing in the canoes.
Yeah.
When we started off in our canoe, there was nobody around us. Like, we couldn't see anyone in front of us, behind us, for, I don't know how far ahead of the next team behind us we were by the time they left in the canoe. But, I mean, we lost a little time with my bad navigating canoe steering skills, and then we switched spots so Andy could paddle and steer us. But, you guys, so it was a 10-mile paddle. I thought it was going to be 12. Thankfully, it was only 10. Still took us like 2.5 hours. But yeah. I'm telling you, man, like some guys caught us about 4 miles in, 5. And they were I don't know how far back. They must have been at least a quarter mile behind us to start with. And then they were gone. I mean, they were paddling so hard. We lost sight of them. And then I don't know what their time was. We'll see it once all the results come out. You think they did 2 hours in the canoe?
I don't
to
know.
our 2.5?
They were flying. Like,
my shoulders were on fire.
Yeah,
I could not do it.
They caught us and then just disappeared us. And like, there was a really congested part about mile, I don't know, probably like 6.
Yeah.
So they caught us by like mile 4. They gapped us. We couldn't
kind of see them through the congestion. We caught them just a little bit.
Yeah, like in the congestion, maybe we navigated that a little smoother, and we could see them like off in the distance. But once we got clear of everybody,
they were just gone again.
Took off.
And then one other short course team caught us and passed us, and then there were 2 other teams coming on. We could see them coming at the end.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna. Andy talked me in. He's like, don't paddle hard. Just keep paddling. Just nice, easy.
Keep the cadence up.
Just keep it going. So that's what I did. And when I could see that the finish line, I thought we had another 2 miles to go when we were actually coming up on the finish. And once I realized that, then I paddled out as hard as I could for the next, I don't know, a couple hundred yards.
Yeah.
And we safely finished ahead of the 2 teams behind us.
Yeah.
Well, semi-safely. I did manage to tip us over at the very, very end because we missed where the bar was. There was really calm water, but there was also like a little channel that had like the fastest water we saw all day long.
Yeah.
And we had to come into it, across it to finish. And I don't know if I was like panic lunging trying to get out because the front was touching or what, but I definitely tipped us over. Fortunately, it was just like a 90-degree tip and not a full flip.
I mean, in honesty, even though I was giving you a hard time about it earlier, I think it was a combination flip. I think it was mostly just both of us were getting out at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, like, the combination of the 2 of us, like, stepping out at the same time into the current, like, did us in. But
and then we had to run, not jog, right, to the finish line with rocks in my sandals. That was fun.
Yeah.
So, Andy, other than just, like, training, trail running, if somebody wanted to do this, what would be, like, things you would recommend?
I mean, other than training trail running, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. And I guess I really don't think you have to train on trails per se, because the trails were overall pretty good. They weren't too broody or too rocky. They weren't very technical. But just got to get gain in, even if it's on, paved surfaces, just getting the climbing in as a runner. And then I think someone who's coming like from the streets to the trail, like this trail race, it's important to realize like there's only one aid station, and frankly it's kind of early. It's like mile 4.5 or 5. And so, road racers, you don't have to worry about any of your hydration, nutrition, because basically every 2.5 miles you have stops, like in any sort of, mid or bigger race. But on this, you only have the 1. So it's a kind of different set of logistics of having to carry the hydration, having to carry like any of your nutrition with you, as opposed to be able to, get it from the course.
Right.
So that's just the other big logistical, hurdle.
Yeah. I think, not that it really made a difference, I don't think, but I think we overpacked the cooler.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we stayed hydrated really well on our running, biking legs. I still have three quarters of a gallon of water left, and I had a V8 and another Dr. Pepper, and
yeah, I think we anticipated wanting more at the end of the bike and run than what we actually wanted, and really, like, while we were working the canoe, like, I didn't really feel like eating or taking much of anything.
I was eating because I kind of thought I needed to, just to keep the engine running, but I could have done without.
Yeah, like
I still got a pretzel left, still got a granola bar left, still have my cookie dough bites left. Like, most of what was in the cooler did not get touched.
Right.
Which, I mean, whatever, better to be over prepared. I don't think that extra 5 pounds of weight that we didn't need is going to matter.
Yeah, I don't think it mattered.
Put your better canoe steer in the back, even if you weigh a little more than they do, and then slide the cooler back there to balance it out. But yeah. Other than that, for mountain bikers, look, if you just go, if you can ride a lap at Berryman, you can finish Though, man, that gravel road on the way out from Bass, you just feel like you never stop climbing all the way. It's like, when your parents say they walked uphill to school both ways. It really did feel like that. It just like, how am I going uphill again? It really, and I was feeling really good right when we took off, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a good day. And then up that hill, here everybody comes, they're just passing me, and I'm like, okay, do I try to go with them? And eventually I said no. But I think I wasn't the only one going too hard, because even before we got to the woods, there were several people I passed back. And a lot of that was just carrying momentum down the hills, like arrow tucking. I mean, if you take 5-6 more miles an hour into the next uphill, you don't have to work as hard.
Yeah, that reminds me of one thing about a road runner coming to like an event like this, a trail. I mean, if you're a trail runner, like, you probably know a lot more than I do. One thing that I wish I would not have done is, like, I had looked at the elevation profile quite a few times before the event, and I actually wish I had not done that, because, like, the mental is really important. And so I kept trying to think, like, is this the last big climb? Is this the last big climb? And then when it wasn't, right, like, that was kind of defeating, right?
Right.
You're sitting there thinking to yourself, I think this is the last big one. Let's just get up it. And then there's another one, right? Whereas I think for me, at least personally, if I would have just gone in blind and just been like, okay, like, whatever up's, I'm going to go, and whatever downs, will go down. I was in my head a little bit in the run when I'd see another climb, and, like, that was, kind of just disheartening.
Yeah. And again, for the mountain bikers, I'm telling you, especially once you get on the trail, but even on the gravel roads, and even on the gravel roads, if you can get comfortable tucking, going fast, get a dropper post, I promise you that dropper post is worth every ounce of weight. There is more time to be made just being able to carry your speed around twisty, turny corners and parts of the trail. I promise you all, I beat at least 10 people who were probably faster climbers than me, even though it was a cross-country race, because they were so slow in anything that was not uphill, or anything that was kind of technical uphill. The hardtail crowd really was struggling in a lot of spots where my bike just carried momentum straight through stuff. So if you feel like you're someone who's already super fit, but you're telling yourself, like, I don't need a dropper, I don't need to go practice my downhill skills, it's all in the climbs, I'm telling you, man, that's not true. Like, you're still going to beat me, but you could probably beat me by another 15 or 20 minutes if you could go downhill 80% as fast as I do. And I'm not even really trying that hard, but there were so many people, I couldn't believe how much it mattered in this race. So anyway, that's it for the Rapid Reaction Pod. We're going to go get some cheeseburgers because we earned them.
Yeah, we did.
Thanks for listening.